Hello everyone and welcome to our last video in our beginner lecture series. In this video we are going to talk about our introduction to InGame, otherwise known as Yose. Yose is the Japanese Go term for InGame, and most Westerners use Japanese Go terms. So if you hear someone saying Yose, it basically means the InGame. Now when we say the InGame, it's basically when there's no big open areas left to play. There's no big fights left to fight. That means the rest of the territory, or the rest of the moves, will secure the territory. So what I mean by this is, the territory is not fully secured just yet, but now both players need to expand their territory and last a little bit, as much as possible, and then finally secure it. So you want to push your borders and gain maybe a couple points at a time. This is the end of endgame. While in-game, as you get stronger, you'll find that you're in in-game much faster and faster, but for now, just know that in-game is basically securing the final points in your territory. The things you want to know about in-game are Sente and Gote. Sente means the variation ends with you having the initiative. Gote means the variation ends with your opponent having the initiative. Let's talk a little bit about that. So our first in-game move is going to be over here. So here we can see that if black plays down, white can no longer come into the territory. And white plays, and you can see that black is now securing this territory over here. And then you can go down and play the rest of the game like that. However, this is a little bit of a soft approach. You can actually be a little bit better by playing a move like this. This type of Hane or bend around move will start pushing to your opponent's territory while also securing yours. Then white will block. Black fixes because you only have one liberty. White fixes. And you can see that in the game, white got 2 more points than in this variation. So here, black actually reduced 2 points for white while still securing his own. When you are securing your own borders, you want to push into your opponents as much as possible if you can. Now let's talk about the Sente versus Gote part. Here, we saw that black played and threatened to get in white. So white had to block, and black blocked. Now, why can't white ignore? Well, that's because there's a cut here. This cut actually puts this white stone into Atari. Now, no matter what white does, there's no way out. You can see that black successfully breaks into this white territory. Therefore, white must fix this cut. And now it's black's move again. So black has the initiative. That means this Hane for black is Sente. You want to take all of your Sente moves first. Once you take all of your Sente moves, you can then take the big Gote moves or stop your opponent's Sente move. In this case, it was actually double Sente, because if I play here, well, if I play something else, let's say I play something else, and our opponent plays here, you can see I also have a cut and I also have to fix. Therefore, my opponent can actually play this move in Sente as well. So this move is Sente for both sides. You can call this double Sente. Double Sente moves are very, very large to get, so make sure you get to them first. So we play this Sente move, and now we find another Sente move. Another Sente move is actually this one. Here we can play, and play again. Now our opponent can block, fix, our opponent fixes the cut. So now we played another Sente move, got a couple points while also reducing quite a few points of whites. Then we play this one, and white has to fix a cut. And now finally we can go play the Gote move. So yes, white now has the initiative, but there's no more Sente moves left to play. You can see by playing the Sente moves first, you can take all the Sente moves, and then you can play the big Gote move, and now your opponent doesn't really have an option to play. Let's change and see what would have happened had we played the other way. What happens if we play this one first? Okay, well now white has Sente, so white can play here. This one is a little bit Gote for white, so we can't play this one because this one's bigger. Now black can play here, and then block. And you can see that the difference between this position and this position is quite different. So if you calculate the points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11. If black had played Sente properly, and white couldn't play all these moves, then black would have had an 11-point advantage over white. So here, on this board, black lost the 11 points he could have had if he had played the Sente moves first. So here, make sure you play the Sente first, and then play the Gote. If you play Gote moves, then you can lose up to 20 or 30 or even 50 points in endgame. It's very dangerous to let your opponent get Sente over and over and over again in the endgame. So make sure you are constantly looking for those Sente moves in the endgame. In order to practice your endgame, try playing 13 by 13 games. This will help you get to the endgame faster, as well as play many, many games very quickly. 13 by 13, you don't have as many moves as in the middle game or in the opening. Therefore, the endgame comes very quickly, and you can work on securing your territory very quickly, reducing your opponents, and learn all the endgame shapes. So, 13 by 13 is great for practicing endgame. Alright, now let's review a little bit about each of the shapes that we encounter. These shapes are all very common shapes that you might see. The first shape is the Hane, Hikari, Fix, and Fix. So the Hane and threaten the cut. Hane on the first line, block, and your opponent will have a cut. This is the most common endgame shape you'll see. The second endgame is Gote move. Make sure that you realize this is Gote. That's the one you want to play last. And last are the moves that are not quite on the second line where you have to Hane on the first one yet, but you can still Hane on the second one, and then threaten the first one. Like so. Then you can come back and play the endgame moves, or the Gote moves. So those are some common shapes you'll see, and hopefully by playing 13 by 13 games, you'll be able to practice this concept. Remember, if the variation ends with you having the initiative, then it was a Sente variation, and that's the ones you want to do. It will take some practice and some experience to actually figure out which variations are Sente and which variations are Gote. The only way to learn all the endgame shapes, or the majority of them, is to play lots and lots of games. So practice on a 13 by 13, play lots of games, and get a good idea of how to play the endgame. That's the best way to master our introduction to endgame. There will be advanced endgame ideas and concepts where you can calculate the exact value of endgame moves. However, endgame mathematics can get very, very complex and very, very complicated. I suggest you look into it after you master the basics. However, know this. Mastering the endgame is actually extremely difficult on a mathematical perspective, because calculating those formulas and calculating the exact values, even pros can struggle with this, because the math in the endgame can get very, very, very complex. So I recommend learning some basic mathematical ideas, getting some basic ideas of this move is worth this much, and make sure you can calculate it in a kind of quick way. The reason I say this is because near the end, most of the time you'll be in overtime, either Bioyomi or sudden death or whatever time setting you're working on. You won't have a lot of time to calculate all the endgames perfectly. So trying to come up with a quick formula or a quick method to calculate the endgame moves quickly is a great idea for mastering the endgame at higher levels. For now, just know that playing the endgame, try to play Sente moves first. Master this, and then you can learn all the mathematics about it later. Alright, as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next series.